All right, before we get into today's episode, just want to give a shout out to all the Patreon subscribers. If you want to support this show, check out patreon.com/bigtruth. There's all kinds of different levels of patronage there, and they all have their own exclusive benefits. We do things like early access to episodes, giveaways, exclusive stuff, exclusive discounts, and whatnot. More content coming just for the Patreon subscribers and all of that, so check it out. If you happen to be in the unfortunate situation where you find yourself in a motorcycle accident, you need to check out the Glassman Injury Attorneys on Instagram at Gotta Get Glassman, or give them a call at 617-777-7777. Again, the easiest number in the world to remember, 617-777-7777. Now, that one I hope you never need to use, but if you do find yourself in that situation, hit them up because they're bulldogs and they're going to do it. They're going to get you what you're owed. And I'm not a litigious dude, but if someone's distracted and driving and smashes into you, and God forbid, you know, if your bike's screwed up, that's one thing, but God forbid you're physically screwed up, get them, you know what I mean? Like, let them learn to not text and drive or do some dumb stuff. But anyway, that said, get Glassman on the case because they're the dudes. Nationwide too. And if they got someone they can set you up with, and you got up to 3 years. So if something happened to you 2 years ago, you can still call them. Now, if you need artwork for any reason, or you're interested in art, you're a fan of art, collector of art, or you punched a hole in the wall you need to cover up, or you just have some blank spot, or you want to brighten up your workspace, your garage, or your tattoo shop, or your house, whatever. Especially if you have a tattoo shop, you need to get in touch with Tattoo Flash Collective over at tattooflashcollective.com and on Instagram at Tattoo Flash Collective. They got everything you need, whether it's tattoo flash or prints, all different size. They are tattoo artists and they support tattoo artists. Not all of it's tattoo art, but it's art from tattoo artists, but there'll be prints, like all kinds of rad art. Johannes has hooked me up with posters, and he helped outfit the Dipper, and I got a bunch of his flash at my tattoo shop, so it's all good stuff, and if you use the promo code BIGTRUTH at checkout, you get 10% off your order. If you are a Patreon subscriber, you get even a bigger discount with a different code, but you need to be a Patreon subscriber to find that code out. So check them out, tattooflashcollective.com. If you want more information on the podcast, just go to bigtruthpodcast.com. If you're into motorcycles and punk rock and choppers, and basically if you like this podcast, then you will like my motorcycle shop. It's Choppahead over at choppahead.com, CHOPPAHEAD. But we're not a website. That's secondary. We're a full brick and mortar motorcycle shop. We're a destination. You can come here. You can walk in. Just this week, we've had people from, I believe it was South Carolina, and we've had people from Europe here. We've had people from all over the country come in, right? So you can walk in. We got a showroom, a parts counter, apparel area with motorcycle riding apparel and shop swag. And then in the back, we're a full-service brick-and-mortar motorcycle shop. We build you a custom bike. We'll change your oil, everything in between, whatever you need. So check us out, choppahead.com, 13 County Road, East Freetown, Massachusetts. 508-995-6764, all right? That is the number. But today, I got my man Roger Miret on, who you might know from the band Agnostic Front or the Alligators, or Roger Miret and the Disasters. Iconic dude in the world of hardcore. The film Godfathers of Hardcore was about him and Vinny. No introduction even needed. Just listen right now.
Big Truth Podcast. Laying down the hatches! Get ready!
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
All right. Once again, we have liftoff. I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Big Truth Podcast. And today I'm stoked to be here with my boy, who's like a living legend in the world of punk and hardcore. You know him from bands Agnostic Front. You know him as an author and as a Godfather of Hardcore, as the documentary is titled. I want to welcome my boy Roger Miret to the show. What's happening, bud?
What's going on, Truth? How you doing, brother?
Good. We're on the you're in the heat. I'm in the cold. We'll get it going. But you got a new book out. and I was stoked to be able to go over to the Bridge 9 to see that impromptu show and kind of like the Q&A about the book. That's kind of like a timeline of history, like of the band and music and an archive of all the things you've collected over the years. How's that going, man? And why don't you tell people a little bit about that book? And if you have it, I see it in the background there.
Yeah, that's the deluxe version. That's just a hard case, and the book is right here too.
Yeah, there you go. It's a behemoth of a book. What's that thing weigh? Like 8 pounds?
It's 5 pounds.
5 pounds, yeah. It's like a heater. Yeah.
But you get a workout of just looking through it. You don't have to go to the gym for arm days.
Yeah. Just walk around the house going like that with it. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, that book is it's really like a collection of a very intimate, personal time in life where, like, being in something, whether it was the New York hardcore scene or just a regular punk scene, anything like that, in that era, from anything from the late 70s going into like mid 85 into 86 was such a special time. That was like kind of when things were really like blossoming and really things are going places before it exploded into more of a more just straight up popular, type of stuff. So these pages here are like kind of very intimate, very like, it's very personal. It's like when punk and hardcore was very personal, when you went to a show and, you were within maybe 30, 40, 50, 100 people kind of shows,
Yeah.
And then it blew up, like I said. But it was just cool. It's kind of the start and creation of something. You can see it the way it starts. It actually starts in the 70s with Vinny. And it goes from his band going into the Eliminators, then going into Agnostic Front. I tell like only like 7 little short stories. And basically one of them is Stigma, the other one is the early years about the band without me in it. Then I go into United Blood. Then I go into Victim in Pain. Then there's a couple of small things. There's a little short thing on the Psychos, which is my band that was collectively running in the same time frame as Agnostic Front.
Yeah.
We're running side to side. But Agnostic Front was always a special band. I mentioned it in the early years that it was always the people's band for New York. Like people, like for some reason, they gravitated to Agnostic Front as people that brought that band that brought people together, really very unity based. It was like our, the people's band. And the next thing you know, I'm in the people's band, and I'm doing United Blood, I'm doing Victim in Pain, and I'm touring the world.
But beyond that, it became like the people's band just in hardcore in general. You know what I mean? Like, cause up here in Mass, AF, especially like when you would, when I was just introduced to punk and hardcore and stuff, and then, AF always, I don't know, it was a combination of the music and the lyrics, but also just the attitude around it, or like the people in it, like just brought people together. Because like you and Vinny are the mainstays. Like I know you weren't the original singer, but you were in, early on and on all the records. But there was something about the message of Agnostic Front that always brought people together. Like that was always the cool thing, because especially in those days, there wasn't as many bands as now. So you'd go to a show and it'd be a mixed bill, and you guys were talking about, punk, the metal dudes, the hardcore dudes, we're all in this together, and that was always the vibe of Agnostic Front. Even though we won't get too deep, like Maximum Rock and Roll and stuff like that would like to say other things about you guys back then. It was never like that. You guys were always the people bringing people together.
And that was what it was all about ever since I remember the band, seeing them, watching them play.
Yeah. It always felt like us versus them, like us, the collective us in the room of that show versus society outside of that wall, that safe space of that.
That's pretty much really exactly what it was. And it was, the band, what was special about the band, it wasn't musicianship. I'll tell you right from the get-go. I mean, we weren't like even before I joined the band, they weren't the best musicians. There were far better musicianal bands out there, right? Like the Abuse, and that was a really good musician band. If you're listening to that 7 Abuse 7 inches, phenomenal. I mean, you had Kraut, you had Reagan Youth, you had Urban Waste. There was a lot of great bands in New York City, and the Bad Brains, at the time. But it was, for some reason, it was just about like, it was a band that you could easily approach and you felt connected to, and you felt like these dudes are real. You felt like they were genuine, and people want to be a part of something real and genuine.
Yeah.
And especially they're seeing you at every show, and they're like, you know, you're interacting with everybody, and it really became like, this is the band that's waving that flag from New York, you know, at the start. Like, we're for New York. We still are for New York.
Yeah.
You know, we don't claim to be the best, and I never have, never will. You know, we do want to bring it for New York. You know, like in this actual book, as you're going through the time, there's a really special part in the book where there's a diary. I kept the diary of our very first tour in America.
Yeah. And
all of a sudden, in the center of the book, you get to read that diary. You get to go on tour with us. You get to see some pictures. You get to see some flyers.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I was putting this book together in a chronological order. And then I was starting to think, like, wow, you know, like there were bands that toured, that did a tour. Like, for example, Cause for Alarm went to California and back.
Yeah.
You know, Crowd went California and back. And they would go to Midwest and back. And we were like the first band to really jump in the van and go for it.
Yeah.
We went for it.
And those were in the days where it wasn't like touring now. Like, you know, like you don't have cell phones and GPS and, you know, like a whole infrastructure and like clubs around the country ready to book punk and hardcore shows. You guys had to really, seek it out.
We stuck it out because, you know, if you read the diary, if you start reading the book and you start reading the diary, which is a cool part about the book, because all of a sudden it's a visual part. All of a sudden now you're reading stuff. And you see, like, we start the tour day 1 or day 2. We're already 9 shows canceled.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're still going.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we're still going. We're still going. We're still, like, this whole tour was about 2.5 months, I think. We only did like 15 shows.
Yeah, yeah.
We spent so much time. If you read it, it's kind of funny because I went back reading it. I was kind of entertained. Spent so much time fishing.
Yeah.
We did so much crazy stuff, bro. We did, like, we were, you know, we just. What else we're gonna do? We're making the dates that we were committed to making.
Yeah.
We always been like that, but we'd show up to places. It'd be like, sometimes it was like a lot. Like, where is this? Is there really a club here? Was this a setup or what is it? You know?
Yeah.
But we did it because we wanted the experience. You know, we jumped. You know, that van that we were in wasn't even a registered van. It was a van that I bought off of someone on the streets.
Yeah,
like back then, I don't know nothing about registers, and I just bought the van and we went on tour. And I remember we got pulled over at one point in Florida.
Yeah, and
we had Freddie with us, and this was the time when America. You know that dude from America's Most Wanted. His son, he got kidnapped.
Oh yeah. They
were looking for him everywhere, right? And they finally found, you know. Unfortunately, they found his head or something like that. A little kid, you know. Yeah. So it was a really weird time, and they thought we were kidnapping Freddie because here's a bunch of crazy-looking guys who had this van with graffiti on it and with his big horns in the front, right? And Freddie, and you hear I write about in the book. And Freddie's like, "No, that's my brother." Like, "No, kid, you could tell us the truth."
Yeah.
You know?
How old was he at the time?
He was like, he was like 7 or 8, maybe.
That's
7,
crazy.
I think.
Well, as an older brother, what was it like bringing your, you know, like not just your little brother, but your like 7-year-old brother out like across the country to like on tour?
Well,
like,
I didn't bring him across the country. He met with us for the Florida dates.
Oh, okay,
I had him like for the 5 Florida dates. I couldn't do that. It was April. He was in school, but I used to bring him up to New York for like the summer.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I always felt, and he'll probably tell you the same thing. You know, my household wasn't the safest household to grow up in. You know, it was kind of an abusive situation, and he felt alive. He felt great being with me. He loved it, you know, from day one. And then not only that, I was really living amongst crazy people. I was living near a guy that fed his girlfriend to the homeless, and then you had all kinds of crazy people in abandoned buildings, and still. I felt like my brother was safer with me in those conditions. How wild is that?
That's wild, yeah. And
really
think about just, you know, and you know, expanding on that, like New York at that time where there was just all these abandoned buildings and you could just build out a squat and live there. You know what I mean? Now those places are like $7,000 a month, right? Like it's bananas. Like what different times.
Listen to what I just told you before. I bought the van off of some dude in the streets.
Yeah.
And we went on tour. And then remember that time when they pulled us over, they never bother asking us for registration. We had none of that shit.
Yeah.
We had nothing to present.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, well, you can take it back. I bought it for $250 from some dude.
Yeah.
I don't know where he got it from.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
Yeah, there was there was no pedigree. There was no you like you said, you didn't have a title or nothing, or even a registration.
Back then the license too, it was just there was no photos. You know, they just started introducing photos to license. So it was just a piece of paper, and it said your height, your eye color, your date of birth, and your skin.
Yeah,
that's it.
Wild. Yeah,
and anybody that was my height, had blue eyes, and my cocaine, whatever, my coloring, could do the license for me and give it to me. In fact, that's how Vinny Stigma has his license. He's never really had a license. He had somebody do it back then. And then he just started renewing it.
Yeah. And then finally it came to pictures, and he took his picture, and that's just on it.
And then back then we had crazy. It was crazy. I had multiple different.
Sure.
In fact, when I got married here, my wife, one of the first things my wife said when we got married is like, you got to get rid of your other license. I was carrying multiple licenses.
Yeah.
But because back then you get pulled over, you don't want to give them a license from the same area.
No.
So give them a license. Oh, here's my Florida license. So they never send you the ticket. They don't. New York doesn't bother with you.
Yeah.
But now it's all connected. Don't do that.
No.
That's how wild things were still,
Yeah, that's what I mean. There was so much more. For lack of a better word, there was so much more freedom back then. Like, because in anonymity, you could just glide under the radar, and do shit. And
we used to send Freddie to the park. I mean, from the park to the bodega to pick up quarts. Back then they didn't have 40s; they had quarts.
Yeah.
Quarts of Old English and stuff like that. Yeah. Freddie now, he's 6, 7 years old, going across the street, picking up like 5 or 6 quarts, bringing it back in the park.
Yeah, no ID. They don't give a shit. Yeah.
This shit, they let us do anything we want.
Yeah.
But little did we know, honestly, we were kind of gentrifying the damn place.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of. We kind of like, we were cleaning up there. I was cleaning up those buildings. Those buildings a lot of them used to be what they called warehouse apartments. Like, especially during the time when my daughter was coming, I couldn't be in an abandoned building with no heat or no hot water, nothing. So I went into a warehouse apartment. What that was like a building, and it was just when the gentrification was just about to pop off. So they wanted to sell the buildings with less people in the apartments so they could hike the rents. Boom, So this giant building, like a 30-something family building, with only 8 families in it.
Yeah.
And everybody else is living in there with like, people on the streets, drug dealers, whatever. So I went in there with my dogs. I pulled some drug dealer out that was a junkie, whatever, threw my 5 dogs in there and claimed that. You know what I mean? Yeah, That's how it was. Yeah. It was like you go in there, you claim your shit.
Yeah, this is mine. And then you hold it down.
You get out of here. Yeah. I needed hot water. I needed heat.
Yeah.
I'm about to have a kid.
Yeah. I can't even imagine, how nowadays, because I got into things a little bit later. But I started going to shows out in the late 80s and got to see some stuff in the late 80s in New York and CBs and stuff. But, it was still wild, but it wasn't as wild as the early 80s. It was already started to get cleaned up a little bit. But
I don't even recognize the city anymore. I was just the other day. I recognize. I was like, what's all these bike lanes? What happened? And in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah.
If you look at pictures of the Lower East Side Avenue, look up any pictures from Avenue A, B, or C, 1980, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, it'll look like a bomb hit that place.
Oh, yeah.
Like one building standing in a ratio of a full city block.
Yeah.
And cars with no rims, no tires on bricks,
Yeah.
I remember all the shooting galleries, the lines. It was the lines, like a line going to a show, but it was a line to go into a shooting gallery to buy your drugs, and another line on the other door to get in and do it.
Yeah. Bananas.
It was crazy. And it was open like that. And the cops didn't care.
Yeah.
They didn't care. In fact, then they started, then the gentrification, I remember it was Operation Pressure Point. There you go. I remember right now. It was called Operation Pressure Point. It was to clean all the drug dealers, everything out of the Lower East Side. And I remember we used to have the drug dealers on the roofs. And every time the cops would come down the street, you hear, arriba, arriba, arriba. And they start whistling. That means all the drug dealers go back in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And nobody out there hustling. And the cop would just drive down the street. So I remember I'm doing Operation Pressure Point. They cleaned up the whole Lower East Side. There was this one last dude. I think he was on 7th Street. I can't remember his name for the life of me right now. But this dude had all the buildings were abandoned. Now, you're talking about buildings abandoned like 6, 7, 8 in a row. He had broken through walls, underground tunnels, everything. That was a top-notch operation.
Yeah.
And they could never get this dude. You know, they finally got him. They finally cleaned up the whole Lower East Side. They got rid of everybody there. They were neighborhoods. There were kids, people living there. They just threw them all. They can't get rid of the projects. They can never do that.
No.
But they got rid of everybody and everything else. New York City's, there's no neighborhoods there anymore. It's everybody. Everything's expanded on the outskirts. And I often wonder what they do with all these people.
Yeah.
You know, where do they put all these people?
Yeah.
You know, these are families.
Yeah. No, it's crazy, right? And then now it's like so many people getting in, trying to get housing. It's like, where'd all these people come from? It's the exact opposite. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I love New York. Like, and I, you know, I love Boston, but I wouldn't move to either of those places right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got to have like $1 million in the bank just to get your first, last, and you know, a deposit. You know, it's
the thing that always pissed me off is I always felt there was some kind of a secret society. Because how come I didn't know about this?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, this place is gentrified, and it's always a bunch of like upscale, ritzy little white dudes, you know, have this cafe over here, this vegan place over here, this, you know, I'm like, well, when did I never got the notice? Why can't I get in on it? You know, I've been here my whole life.
You were holding it down. You were cleaning it up before them.
Police, right?
Yeah.
No. And next thing you know, they got everything. They got these cafes, they got everything, and they're thriving. And I'm still hustling, trying to find the next building to get into. There was I remember one time this guy, Zach, you might know him. He was a big builder, bike builder, early bike builder from New York City. His name was Zach. I don't know if you ever saw my chopper I built a long time ago.
Yeah, I did see that.
He used to make custom jewelry for bikes.
Okay.
On the push rod tubes, he made these skulls in brass. Sick.
Yeah.
He used to make custom kick pedals and stuff like that. I regret not pulling it off my bike because it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And then this guy got popped. You know, he had a spot that we were doing shows there for a minute between B and C. I can't remember the name of it, but he got popped. And I remember when he was selling his it was like a 2-floor, like small, like place with a garage inside. He was selling it for like 35, 40,000.
Crazy.
And I'm like, yeah, that seemed like a lot back then, you know.
Yeah.
I would have if there was anybody that and I went and looked at that building. That's like a $5, $6, $7 million building.
Yeah. It's the same thing.
You know what I mean?
A Mass Ave in Boston.
Prison,
oh, what's that?
Look him up. He might still be locked up.
Yeah.
Look him up.
I will.
As a bike, you know.
Yeah, dude. I remember you. I remember years ago. Like, when did you sell that bike? Because I remember talking about that. Like, you were running something by me when you were getting rid of that thing.
Yeah,
it was a long time ago. I can't even remember.
I had an opportunity to get it back.
Oh, that's what it was. That's what
I ran by you, and I sold it to a friend of mine's cousin, and then he wanted to sell it back, but I knew I didn't want. I had to get it back here to Arizona.
Yeah,
and I was experiencing a lot of I was having my heart condition, experiencing a lot of vertigo, yeah, and weird stuff. So then, you know, I remember talking to my wife about it, and then it was like, you know, I might, you know, it wasn't the smartest idea. Anything weird get me vertigo, and I probably would have killed myself.
Especially on some like canyon roads out there. Yeah, forget it.
So my club brother Lenny bought it. I don't know if you know Lenny. He actually bought it, and he had it for a while. Then he went up. That's when he went up to sell it again. I had a third opportunity, and I still kind of passed it and went to Japan.
Yeah.
And then somebody in Japan, I remember seeing in like the for sale things in Japan. They don't even know what they had. Yeah, that thing was in that magazine was in Iron Horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was beautifully done, and I built that in my bedroom. I was building two at a time, an iron head and a shovel head, identical twins in my bedroom in Florida. I was building them. Then I brought them back to New York. I was at MMI.
You were at MMI, yeah.
And I came back to New York, and I showcased it with Don. You know, remember Don? He used to be with SD Cycles. He used to be Steg and Don. Steg then started doing cycles, and Don started doing as he kept SD. And they had that famous bike, the Taxi.
Yep.
New York Taxi. These are famous bikes, and we're an Iron Horse, you know.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And we were like the kind of the innovators of people underneath it, the Indian Larrys, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And we did a show at the Jacob Javits Center, and my bike was in it. It was badass.
Yeah.
It was really nice.
I got a bike out there that's an old Cycles bike that Steg and Larry built in '95. I talked to Paul Cox. He told me about it and stuff. It's
so I'm going before that now.
Yeah, oh, I know. You're going '80s, yeah, like early '90s, late '80s.
I actually the other day I found my old Cycles shirt the other day too.
Yeah,
it's cool. But I'm going like, you know, this is when they were partners, and Steg and Don were partners still, and and they just broke off. They had the place in the
English Don, right? Is that what the
English Don?
English Don, yeah.
They had that place in Queens in the alleyway. They were, you know, then things happen, you know. Steg moved. I started working with Don, English Don, in the 30s somewhere in Manhattan, and then Steg moved back into the city, and he was on Avenue C, and Jimmy G was working it too, and I started working with Steg there.
Yeah.
You know, and then we were working together. Then I'm like, I caught a job at Reggie Pink Harley Davidson. It was just better for me. Meanwhile, I'm still living in a squat this whole time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, it's just better. I had insurance, had stuff I needed for my family.
Sure,
and it was consistent. So then I started working. I kind of even, like, I wasn't even doing the band or nothing. I was just doing that. And then from that, I came back to the band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then Steg ended up opening Cycles out on Avenue C. After that place, not Avenue C, on in the Lower East Side, somewhere on Avenue C, I was with him somewhere in the Lower East Side. Then he eventually moved out.
Yeah, yeah. You were actually
parked in the side of the squat.
Yeah, Jimmy's told me a bunch of stories about working too in his old pan shovel and stuff. And
yeah, dude, we had blast, man.
Yeah, that must have been wild times, man. And but yeah, you were ahead of the curve on you know, just as a joke, like falling back, but like on real estate in New York, because I remember, you know, years later when I was hanging out with you at one of the Rumblers shows, and you were like one of the early dudes that, like, you know, like adopted like Brooklyn too, and like you had all the spots in Brooklyn before they blew up, like, but maybe even
clubhouse there. We had everything there. We had a cool clubhouse.
Yeah,
and that went the way it went. You know, like, you know, the whole time I just couldn't. I remember this one time. This really. I was in Long Island City. You go to Long Island City now. I remember they offered us, and they built this one high rise. They offered us a space. It was $25,000 just to buy in.
Yeah.
But then the costs, the monthly maintenance was like ridiculous. But it was cool. There was a school and everything in the building. And then I'm like, I forget it. They ended up building like 8 or 9. They have a whole new skyline in Long Island City.
Yeah, wow.
So I was still in a rent-controlled, real 2-bedroom apartment back then. And this one opportunity came up when there was an old firehouse, and I've always wanted to live in an old firehouse.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it popped up. I just thought it's the coolest thing to live in an old firehouse. You could park your cars in the bottom.
Sure, yeah.
You know, thing, and you know, and it was right there, right in the Long Island City, right across the street from the police precinct, on the first stop in Long Island City, and it was for sale for something like, at that point, like 180, maybe 200.
Yeah. I
remember hitting my brother Rudy. He was like, oh, you know, he's I don't know. Boom, man, that place is worth millions.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't have the money anyway. I was trying to figure out how to get money to do this. And my brother just didn't. He was in Florida and he didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
I'm sure, like, it is what it is. I had to leave New York City to actually own anything because it's impossible.
Oh yeah.
It's one of the few places where it's cheaper to rent than to own.
Yeah. And then, you know, on top of it, like the stuff we're into outside of music, like hot rods and bikes and stuff, like trying to find a place to store a car, never mind a couple bikes in New York is bananas, especially nowadays, like, you know. And it's like, especially the level of car you are building, you know what I mean? Like, you can't have that out anywhere. You can't put that on the street, dude. Imagine that.
And we had a really nice spot. And it turned into like this hipster barbershop thing, and then it turned to something else. It's still there. You know, it is what it is, man.
Yeah. So, you know, I know you've talked to a couple people about the books and stuff, but one thing I wanted to ask you about as you were going through the book, because, you know, it's a timeline. And if anyone's seen the Godfathers of Hardcore, like the scene where you're opening your trunk, a lot of the stuff from this book was the stuff that was kind of in that trunk, right?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I was talking to my sister today, and because nobody got a book because I didn't have any books,
Yeah.
I never got to give my family any, and I would like to, but it was just everything's on demand, kind of pressing. Hopefully the actual second edition that's coming out soon is actually, it's the first edition is always, I feel like, the best to get, but the second edition is going to be packed a little bit
You're gonna have more and
packed.
more stuff. Yeah.
I missed 3 major things I got to get in the second edition.
Yeah.
So it's cool. So I was talking to her about it. I was like, I said, in the movie, when I open up that trunk and all the stuff in it, people always come to me like, you gotta, what's in the trunk? You should do something. What's in the trunk? So I said, I decided to do a book of what was in the trunk, and that's what you got.
Yeah. But so 2 things, that I think people would be interested in hearing is like, one, like the amount of moving around you did. And I know you had a big fire at one point and lost a lot of records and stuff and a lot of possessions. Like, how did you manage to preserve all this stuff? And what kind of like, I mean, I'm not saying it's like an anchor, but I can't imagine like having that's like a treasure chest. But like when you're in New York and you're bouncing around and you're doing shit, like how did you manage to like save all that stuff? You know what I mean? And did you have like what caused you to do it too? Like, cause when you're a kid, you're just throwing shit around or whatever, but like did you know like someday this is going to be important? Like what?
No, I just like going through this stuff. I love all that. I mean, nobody makes flyers like that anymore. Nobody does. I mean, vinyl, how fucking cool is vinyl? Little records with color. Like, people lost interest in all that. Like when I would buy a record and I liked it, I would buy 3, because if you play it enough, it's gonna wear.
Yeah.
Or if people off the house, it's gonna fall, it's gonna crack, it's gonna break. How many parties you had and people are drunk, they fall over the thing.
Yeah.
So and that was just a common thing. And being back then, it didn't mean nothing when you buy a record that's $2 or $3 that today are like 15, 2, 3, 5 grand. And you can't do that anymore.
No.
But it was just, I was in a magical place and time in history and a cool time to be that I was able to, and besides the fact that I only be able to get the stuff from these cool record stores locally, just going on tour, people handing me stuff. Hey, check out my band, check out my band. It wasn't no CDs or digital. It was like, it's a 7-inch, 7 seconds here, like all these bands that I became friends with all over, they were giving me all this cool, which was cool,
Yeah.
And having a lot of that stuff was, I had stuff in different places. Like Kabula had a bunch of stuff for me. Vinny had a bunch of stuff for me. My mom had stuff for me. Like, wherever I could put stuff. And in fact, a lot of the stuff came to me from them being tired of holding on to the shit. They're like, you're going to get this shit? I'm oh, I forgot about that. And all of a sudden, holy shit, I didn't know I had this in here. I had my acetate of United Blood in there. I had my stamper. I didn't even know I had this. Oh my God, there's the insert.
Yeah.
You're like, I forgot where I put stuff.
Yeah.
And then it just amazing. It's just like everything. At one point, they're like, hey, I'm tired of holding this shit. You're going to get this shit or what? And then I got a lot of it back. A lot of stuff I lost. Like I think about stuff like I wonder whatever happened to that. I wonder whatever happened to that,
Yeah.
But I mean, I felt like, especially like up to that the end of 85, 86 was an explosive year for music. We all know that. Think about all the great albums that came out in 86.
Oh yeah.
All the big thrash metal bands. I mean, Cause for Alarm was an 86 release. Yeah. Well, I think the Cro-Mags Age of Quarrel was 87, I think. But the Crumbsuckers may have been 86. I think 87 was Leeway too.
I think Cro-Mags was 86.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused.
Yeah.
But Slayer. Just think of all the bands. Like 86 was like the blowout of the combination of the genres of metal and punk and hardcore coming together. That was an explosive year. That from that point on, everything exploded. Yeah. Shows went from like 200-300 to 700, 800 to people coming,
Yeah.
And then this book kind of ends like right before that huge explosion. You know what I mean? And it was like I tell you, it was a lot more intimate. It was like a special time to be there, because at that point, then everything got so big, and it's like my regular, like I would go to a show and I had my group of friends, all of a sudden there's like, who are all these people? Eventually, like you become friends here and there, but there's too many, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of and there's also the same thing with a lot of this stuff, like a lot of the people that were involved in making stuff, not only just music, like the fanzines, the flyers,
Yeah.
the artists, regular artists and the musicians. It was just a very like personal time. And then there was no record companies doing things. It became like, Combat Core, Profile, they became different. It just went different. Then it became digital. And then I think a lot of personalization of stuff kind of faded away. So this is a very intimate time when everything was super personal.
Yeah, because even like you guys would like screen some of your own stuff, or you guys were putting the records together to sell that night at the show. Like it was different. It wasn't like, oh, here the label just gave me a box of 50 CDs to sell tonight. Like you guys were having to make your own shit.
Our record came out like Cost Alarm, and you could buy our stuff at a place called Blue Grape or something. It comes with a thing. You go order stuff. Like, who the hell does that?
Yeah.
I remember screening stuff. I remember people complaining about it, watched it, and it all disappeared.
Yeah.
You got one good use out of it. You paid $5. You should be good. You wore it for. You should have never washed it.
Yeah. We watching punk rock shirts for. Yeah. Should be seasoning those things. Yeah.
It's funny because you look at some of the pictures, and they're in the book too. You can see like Frenchie selling his shirts and the records. And Victim Pain was $5.
Yeah.
And the shirts are $5. And I remember at one point
that was the Rat Cage gatefold. Victim in Pain, right?
It was by then it was probably the second edition. I think it was second. No, maybe it was still first. Yeah, I think it was still first. I remember there's one time we got to Florida and we started heading across going into Texas. It was so hot that every record warped. But we still sold them.
Yeah.
$5. What do you want? It's $5. It's kind of more like a memory at that point.
Yeah.
You
ever get anyone giving you one of those warped ones back?
Nah, you snooze, you lose.
Yeah. So when you were going through stuff, like what were some of the things that hit you the hardest that either you didn't know you had or brought back like a big memory or something? Like what were some of the big finds for you, or the going through all that stuff, or like the kind of the big ticket things?
There was a lot, but one of the last recent thing that actually came to me, and it came to me like, I started this book 4 years ago, by the way.
Yeah.
Started during the pandemic. It was something to do.
Sure.
It was fun just to get through things. At the same time, I was doing that little thing with my records on Vinyl Assault, that IG account, and doing stuff like that. And there's something that came to me like fairly, like not that long ago, maybe a year ago or something, was the actual stamper, one side of the stamper. Like just, hey, I got this. You want it? Like, how did you, I know I'm not going to mention names.
Yeah.
Send it to me. It was somebody, person, someone, that I, family should have had it,
Yeah.
But, and I remember it was only the one side, because the second side, they had to destroy that master, that stamper, because there was a problem. And when they did the second version of United Blood, if you notice, this United Blood has just two different versions, two different matrix. One is because the stampers, after a certain amount of pressing, the one side, the B side went bad, and I had to make another stamper.
Okay.
So I still have the original one side stamper. I never, and then I have two tapes of it. Now I have two, whatever. Anyway, I got I only show one reel, but it's really 3 reels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that was like something cool that came back to me, because I thought that was long gone. There was a lot of things like that came back to me, like for example, finding like the acetate, or finding the reel of Victim in Pain. That was like, whoa. And that came back to me from Don Fury after all these years.
Yeah.
I would ask him, he goes, I don't think I have it. And he found it. Hey, I just got what I found. Boom, like stuff like that.
Yeah. Wild. It's so wild.
And it's amazing. There's a couple of things that I wish I had.
Did the reel hold up, or did it degrade at all, or could you still?
The tapes I had as soon as I got them. In fact, if you just recently, about a year ago, we released Victim in Pain Legacy, and before that, United Blood Legacy, which is a lot of the like really done all by Don Fury, mastered by Don Fury, mixed by Don Fury. The way Don Fury visioned it sounds great. And they were those are from the reels, and those are baked. They were all preserved, baked reel, because everything that was coming out was from the CD, like digital CD. Printed to vinyl. It didn't sound right unless you had Victim in Pain first or second version, original Rat Cage. that sounded great, but then everything after that was weird sounding. And then this new one is amazing. If you're gonna get any of the Victim in Pain or United Blood, make sure you pick up the Legacy.
Yeah,
it's a world of difference, especially United Blood. You can hear Rabies playing drums really good and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, like some of the stuff, there's stuff that I wish that I had, and it kind of stuff that I get bummed out. Some people still have some of this stuff. I'm like, dude, you know, you want to trade or something, and if some people just want to keep it for whatever reason, I don't even think they want to keep it for personal reasons, to be honest. I just want to keep it for scene points. I don't know why the hell I want to keep it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, but it is what it is. You know, I being like a collector and I used to trade things and stuff like. Now I know who to stay away from and who not to, and I know people. You know, like how many times I put you on the guest list, how many times that you came to my shows, whatever, and I'm trying to get one thing from you, you act like.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to get. I'm like, I'll buy it from you, whatever. I want to put in my. You know, it's just weird. You know, you get those people, but then you know what? That's okay. That's a check. That's a check, man. Yeah, next time. Wow.
Yeah. Well, you know what, too? It's like, you know, like say you had some.
Who they are. That's all.
You like, I know you got some rare Misfit stuff. If Danzig wanted it from you, you'd be like,
Well, I'm talking about
real personal things. Yeah. No.
Like as I mean, you know, there's a couple things that people from other bands that people have wanted from me, and I've given to them that I've had.
Yeah.
And there's some good people out there that have done the same thing with me too.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm saying there's a couple of things I would like to add, and I know where they are, and then you get like a comment like, yeah, when I'm ready, whatever. But hey, I'm trying to do this book.
Yeah. Or at least let you have it enough to like do the proper photograph to include it. Yeah, you know, it's like.
But you know, it is what it is, dude. It's all good. I mean, I'm not complaining. You look at this book, there's a lot of shit. There's a lot of shit that make it to the book.
Yeah.
I had to skim it down. I remember when we started, it was 400. We had 470 pages.
Yeah,
like,
that book would have been like $500 because it's all photographs. like
yeah. So we were like, whoa, what are we gonna do? And then we had trim it. We were trying to get it to under like 250 pages that we couldn't. We were trying to get a price point just because people, you know, we just couldn't do it without making it look bad. I'm like, I want this right. If it costs a little bit more, people, when they get it and they see it, they're going to realize they got something special.
Yeah.
And we got it down to 350 pages.
Yeah.
And that was a miracle.
Yeah. You know, and it's not a cheap book, but it's not a cheap book, if you know what I mean. Like, you know, like you're getting a lot.
I mean.
That's like history, man. That's like a history. That's an archive. That's like, and it's like, you know, like I slept that day. I had to bounce out, so I didn't be able to get one from Bridge 9, but I'm going to call Chris this week and be like, you got any more stash? Like, I'll buy it. but no.
We're on to the second edition, but here's the thing. January 16th, it's a few weeks away. That second edition, if you didn't pre-order, you're done.
Yeah.
That's it. No more pre-order the second edition. We're moving on to a third edition, which already kind of started. And the third edition, we're losing 150 pages.
Yeah. So the second edition's the one. Yeah,
get that. First and second edition.
Yeah.
To get the big bang, like, whoa.
Yeah.
The third edition is going to be a paperback, no longer a hardback. And it's going to be a lot of stuff condensed, smaller.
Sure.
Really condensed.
You can't just like physically the density of a book that big, like you can't have the full hardcover in that soft cover and like preserve it. Like
the pages are going to be thinner. This is 100 weight paper.
Yeah.
Where I have to go to an 80 weight. We're just condensing it down to like hey, you had 2 times to get this masterpiece. Beautiful. It's a beautiful book. I mean, even Vinny is like, wow, Roger, this is incredible. Yeah. He's like, this is like like he's blown away just going through it. He's like, this is beautiful for the band. It's like the equivalent of Ian's film, The Godfathers. It's beautiful. For the band, it was a beautiful film. It's like it's equivalent of that for the band, a historical value.
Yeah.
That movie and this book, as far as Agnostic Front, it's got a lot of historical value to it.
Yeah, man, for sure. And you know, like, and I know for you guys personally and for the band, but I think just for hardcore and for music enthusiasts in general, like, you know what I mean? Or fans of like, or people that are interested in the history of like New York subcultures, you know what I mean? It goes beyond just the band, and I'm not discounting it, you know what I mean? I'm just saying it's even bigger than what you're saying, you know what I mean? It's important stuff, and anyone that's into punk hardcore stuff, like, they should be checking this out. Either one of your books, you know, or Vinny's books or whatever. And I gotta get Vinny on to talk to his book too, about his book too. Gallo's gonna roust him up and get him. But I feel like the last holdout is Vinny's apartment in New York. Once if Vinny ever leaves that apartment, New York is fallen, and that's done.
Yeah,
it's done. That's it. That's the last
Ain't going
stronghold.
nowhere. He's like the cockroach you can't kill.
Yeah. If Mott Street falls, forget it. It's done.
It's done.
But yeah, man. Like, was there any, you know, like, I'm a nostalgic guy too, and I love, and there's nothing more like, you know, and I'm not going to repeat them because, you know, your stories and stuff, but some of my favorite things is just hanging out with you guys backstage and or like you and Vinny talking about shit from tours, and like there's some funny one, like the one with the cat and everything, like in the van, like that shit's fucking hysterical to me. I laugh about it all the time, but like going back and going through, like whether it was your first book or the Godfathers or like this new book, what are some of the, you know, you guys have a 40-something year history in career and time span in this. So it's bananas. Like, you know, think about like when we were kids and you get into music, and like music that was 40 years old was like weird, like, you know, like 40s, like whatever stuff, like, you know, like 40 years ago from now, you know, 40 years from today, you can listen to United Blood, or you can listen to like, you know, Drug Free Youth, or, you know, any, you know, weird, you know, different stuff. Like there's all kinds of old, you know, or SSD or whatever, like every city had their early 80s hardcore and stuff. But out of a 40-year, you know, history and a 40-year career in this, like, what are some of the biggest, like, standout moments for you, whether it's things that you've always held with you or things that, you know, hit you when you were looking through all this stuff? You know,
Honestly, I think the very start is standout. I mean, it wasn't the biggest part of our career. It was the most personal. It was the most, like, and I talk about it. If you read the very few parts I wrote,
yeah.
It was a time where we were really connected as a family. We lived it 24/7. Even in our sleep, we were living it. And it was just we needed each other. We looked out for each other. We were like each other's life support in many, many ways. You know, we you know, even though the crazy stuff we went through and stuff like that. But I think the early years of Victim of Pain has always been a very special record for me. I'm not knocking down anything else. I love Cause for Alarm too. Yeah. And on, you know.
Yeah.
But these are just special times in our life where we were really free. We were born free. I mean, we were free. Yeah. We could say what we want, do what we want, be what we want, and no fucks given, bro. Yeah. And it felt so good to just walk out that abandoned building, go to that fire hydrant, brush your teeth, and just look around, and everything looked like shit, but everything looked beautiful at the same time. Yeah. Just walk down the street, you know, and just like, it felt so good to be alive. I don't know. I can never explain it. You know, sometimes when you were just talking about like my brother being like 7, you know, like there's pictures in the book, you know, 6, 7. Like we're watching a Bad Brains show. He's a little kid with a little spiked hair, you know. Yeah. And I think about it. I'm like, man, because I'm, you know, now that I've moved to Arizona, it's a different life, you know, and I'm raising children differently. And I'm, you know, I married a beautiful woman, a smart woman, you know, and we like, you know, we want to raise the children a certain way, you know, and they're in a very, between us, you know, they're very safely brought up. Not like both myself and my wife's upbringings were hard. They were critical. They were pretty hard on us. We didn't have the best of upbringings, you know? So we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to bring that to our children. We want to, you know, give them something safe, a good grounding place. But then at the same time, as this whole thing is processing through me, I would look at my son at 8, at 7. I'd be like, what was I thinking bringing Freddie around?
Yeah. But everyone, you know, like, survived. We survived.
And it's a little boy, like, would I do this to my son now? Like, no, what was I thinking? But you know, the difference is my son is safe. He's happy. Yeah. He's in a good household. There's no reason for me to do anything like that. Yeah. And Freddie, I wanted to get him out of a toxic situation. Yeah. That's the difference.
But it's like, what do you think? Because I think about this a lot. You know what I mean? Especially now that I'm older and stuff. Like the way I grew up, even was a little different because it was a few years. You know, back then, early '80s, mid '80s, late '80s, there was a difference. You know, just even in a few years. But like when I started coming around, it was like mid '80s, '85, and I was still a kid. But the way I grew up with the freedom that I had, which was even a little bit less than what you guys had, like, but like the wanderlust, like you know, taking the bus from Boston, like telling my father, I'm like, I'm crashing at my buddy's house, and then we would take the bus to New York and go see a show at CB's, and you know, like the adventure was just getting there, you know what I mean, like and everything, like, but the freedom we had, like it doesn't, like the world ain't the same. Like I always wonder how it's gonna like play out with like the younger generation. Like
it's not. Just think about what you just said. How old were you when you did this?
Like 13, 14. Well, no, the first time I went to New York, I was 15. Yeah, we took the bus.
You can't get on a bus if you're under 18, 19, 20, or with an ID now. You can't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
You can't go to bodega and buy a 40.
Yeah.
You know, at 7. You know.
Yeah.
Like those days are over.
Yeah. Because I remember that too. Like I remember going to a bodega with my boy Ryan Sikorsky, and he was from New Jersey, but he'd go to shows in the city, and he's just putting stuff in his pocket, grabbing a 40. I was like, yo, what do we got? He's like, nah, they don't give a fuck. Just walk out, like whatever. Like it was just wild. Like it was just like whatever. It's like, and it was just like, it's fucking. But you know,
we're living in a world where there's cameras everywhere, man.
Yeah.
And that's another big difference.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And cell phones, and everyone got a camera in their pocket. If there's not a camera on the street, like,
they don't even help people. They rather take it out and record it.
Yeah.
You could be like freaking in a time where you need help.
Yeah, you could be getting jumped by like 7 dudes, and no one's gonna do anything. They're just gonna film it and put it on YouTube or whatever, or World Star. Yeah, it's a different time for sure, man. But I don't know. Like, I don't, you know, like like I don't have a kid, but if I had a kid right now, I would almost feel bad, like, because it's the same thing. Like, yeah, it's awesome, you're safe, you're not dealing with the bullshit I dealt with. But sometimes I feel like overcoming that adversity made us kind of different people. Like, you know what I mean? And they have different adversity. Everyone's got shit they got to deal with. But like, you know, there was some like real life or death shit back then. Like, you know what I mean?
I totally agree with you. I used to always say, and you know, I would never want any of this to happen to my son.
No.
Which is crazy. This is when I was on my own.
Yeah.
I used to always say, you know, you're not really you haven't really experienced or you're not really a man until you either gone to war or gone to prison, because that's like some hard shit.
Sure, yeah.
I would never want any of that for my son or anybody at this point. You know, it's horrible. Those are some dramatic experiences I've had in my life. You know what I mean? I was strong enough to go through it because I was raised a certain way.
Yeah.
But some of these kids aren't raised the way we were raised.
No.
Like, you know, like could they handle it? I don't know. You know, so it's just different. The whole upbringing, everything was different. You know, like, and you are a product of where you grow up. That's for sure.
Well, that's the key point, right? Like, if you took a kid now and dropped them then into like New York in '81, probably couldn't handle it. But if you grew up in it and adapted to it and evolved in it, then yeah, you just learn to roll with it, and that's just part of your life.
Absolutely. We had members that were from out of New York, and they actually did a tour some with us, and they couldn't hang.
Yeah.
And we're out of here.
Fuck this. Yeah, it's too
wild.
wild.
Go back to like Louisiana. Where the hell we came from? Whatever. Like, what is going on? I remember one guy, Johnny Sanchez, great guy, man. He was trying to. This is right after I took over that warehouse apartment with my dogs and stuff. He was with me, and he was trying to catch a squirrel to eat it. He's not. He's from Louisiana.
Yeah.
Right. So they catch squirrels. They eat squirrels. I'm like, dude, this is a different squirrel. You don't want to eat this squirrel.
Yeah.
This ain't that healthy squirrel in the woods of Louisiana.
Yeah.
This is a nasty squirrel.
Yeah, it's basically a bigger tailed rat at that point, right? Yeah.
But at the same time, I had some nasty ass pigeon in my life,
sure.
You know, but I wouldn't that was an out of necessity, out of means of like, I need to eat. And that's what it was. I've eaten nasty catfish from the Passaic River. If you know what the Passaic River is, you ate it. I'm surprised I'm not glowing green right now.
Yeah.
That was a necessity of life, but this kid didn't need to get that squirrel. Whatever, man. It's funny. Like we talk about stuff and you remember like crazy as shit, you know? And
Yeah. That's and think about it, you got like how many decades of memories to jostle around that I'm sure there's still like shit's gonna come your way that you've totally forgot about, you know?
you know what's really cool about both these books that I've written, especially my first one was very good for me because it was very therapeutic for me.
Yeah, you could tell it was cathartic, you know what I mean, for you?
There was a lot of things I was blocking or holding back. And as I'm going through it, everything started releasing. And it was good to let go. But at the same time, the minute it was going to come out and I knew it was going to be out there, it was a different story too. I was like, these are my secrets. Now the world knows all my secrets. Yeah. It was weird. Yeah. But I'm kind of good at let it go. And I really did that book for my family, for my children, for their grandchildren. It's something that I just wanted them to understand the struggles their father or grandfather, whatever went through, you know, and to be where they are. Same thing with this book. It's very therapeutic to go through it. And even though there's a lot of it's photos and stuff, but as I'm writing stuff and I'm looking at stuff, you know, and remembering, it's very therapeutic. At the same time, it's very like so much comes to mind. You know, like you start thinking about a lot of things and like, wow. And a lot of it good times. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of, especially with time, there's a lot more good times than bad times. My autobiography is a little different story.
Sure.
You know, but at this point, I'm with the gang. You know, I'm with my original Lower East Side crew. You know, so we were like ruling shit. You know, this is ours. You know? So there's a lot of fun in this at these times and creativity.
Sure. Yeah. Know? And when you talk about things like things that were bad times, with time become good times when you look at it, when you make it through it, right? Like, especially if it's some shit that you went through with friends and it was like, oh man, we were in these sketchy situations. You know, that shit was rough. That shit sucked. But then now with time passing, you can look back at it with a little bit of fondness. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we made it through and we persevered and made us stronger.
We used to have this thing, because I spoke Spanish, I was Latin, you know, being the Lower East Side. I was like one of the key guys, very few guys that spoke Spanish. We used to have this thing, we would ride trains. And even we used it the last time. Actually, we were in Colombia, in Bogota, and the guerrillas took over the airport. And we're on our airplane, getting ready to go to the United States of America. And they come in, the whole military comes in, they're pulling people off the plane. And they're looking for like certain passports. I gave them my passport, it's a Cuban passport. And they're like, oh, and then we had this thing, me and Vinny, like when I start talking, he had keywords to say in Spanish.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, you know, he knew. So then when they went up to him to ask him, he knew exactly what to say. They never even got his passport. We actually made it to get out of Colombia. And then it was crazy. There was like a little like civil type of thing going on there, because that's when the guerrillas are fighting the military. Yeah. And we got out of that, but only because I was Cuban. I was on the lucky Cuban times, you know. Yeah. But we would do that in the trains, in the subways. We'd be riding shit, and the whole trick is, a lot of people don't know this. It's funny. We start laughing, think about it. It's like, you know, people, when you get like those crazy people to come up to you in the train, and it's a little frightening if you're not from New York. You don't know what to do, but we knew we have to be crazier.
Yeah. How crazy?
Crazy, you got to be double the craziness. And then they fucking back up. They're like, whoa. And that's how we approach life. You know, like, you know that. Yeah. It's no different than when someone comes up to you and says something to you and they like step into you, whatever like that. You just got to be on top of it. Hey, win or lose. You know, you whatever could happen, but at least you're on top of it. And you get a little bit of respect from that, you know?
Absolutely, man. So we talked a little bit about, a lot about past and stuff. Like, I know you got like an hour, so I just want to be respectful of time here. What do you got coming up? What's Agnostic Front or got coming up? Or are you guys going to do any more book tours or book events or anything like that?
I know we're going to do like little book events on the weekends now, because these books are hard to carry. My own book and Vinny's book. Like I said, my book's 5 pounds.
Yeah.
7 of them make it into a box, and then there's only so much you carry in a van, you know?
Yeah.
So we're going to do like these little drop-in weekends only, like a meet and greet, but just like, you know, you could get the book, we'll sign it, we'll take pictures, whatever, just kind of something like that. So if you haven't gotten the book, at that point, it's the 3rd edition. It's a little bit different, you know? And the same for Vinny's book, you know? We're going to do some of that. We're on tour with Murphy's Law and Violent Way. Yep. It's going to start off in all the way from New York all the way to West Coast and back. Unfortunately, he's not hitting like Boston or anything like that. But we just did a special Boston show for Boston anyway.
Yeah, you did.
Which is awesome, with SSD. Yeah, half AF, half SSD. It was awesome.
Yeah.
You were there.
Yep.
So that's the little things we're going to be doing now. What's really cool is we're also we started to record a record in 5 days.
Okay.
They're in the studio in 5 days. So we got a new record.
What number is this? What number record is this?
I want to say like 14.
I was gonna say it's gotta be 13, 14, right?
Something up there. And then I do the vocals here at the end of the month. So we're getting ready to do a new record, right?
Yeah.
So between the new record, Vinny finally has his book. Like I had my book, then Vinny has his book, and now we have the Agnostic Front book. So we finally got a lot of things, a little bit of buzz going on again, and a lot of things going on. And
yeah.
just doing our thing, man. We're grateful to be alive, grateful to do what we do, what we love, to be living this life, like there's no I don't see a immediate stop at any point right now, because we're just still enjoying life, playing shows, making new friends, seeing old friends like you. Yeah. We're still having a good time. So, that's life. Yeah. Enjoy it.
And it's like, been part of your life so long, man. It's going to be hard to, even those times where there's been little like hiatuses and stuff, like at a certain point, it must be hard, like, just to settle and not do, not tour and see your friends around the world. You can see when you guys play, you guys are still having fucking fun. Like, and there's no reason, like, you would have quit when, whenever, or when the doctor probably didn't want you doing this when you had your heart stuff. But I was there that day, your first show back, and you were like, bro, this is going to be, I'm fucking nervous about this. But you went out and you fucking killed it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that, like, you can say you guys genuinely, this is part of your life. Like, you know what I mean? And like an integral part of all your lives. And you can see it when you guys play. Like, even when there was times where you probably didn't want to do it anymore, something still kept you going,
Yeah. At the same time, like I'm glad I have a lot of this stuff to go back and relive. That's the beauty of keeping a lot of your stuff. And a lot of people, they get rid of stuff. And I'm like, I'm glad I kept this stuff. I could relive, even if it's just going through pages now, I could relive. Yeah. Just enjoy, I got some good stuff coming. So yeah, I'm very grateful.
How fun was it, after all these years, still touring, doing some tours with Murphy's Law and Jimmy and stuff?
Oh, yeah. Wow. We're still not done. We did the whole East Coast, right?
I know you're doing the second leg, yeah.
Now we're doing this.
Yeah.
It's fun. Jimmy's a brother, like, you see in the book, he walked the same path we did. We were there at the same exact time and place in life. And we still are doing the same exact things, Yeah. So it's cool. It's cool to be out there together with someone you grew up with. We were teenagers, dude. Yeah. We were teenagers. Teenagers, and now we're grown men. And I'm 60. He's a little younger than me. I think he's 2 years or 1 year younger than me.
Yeah,
but it's
still doing it.
But he still behaves like
yeah.
I grew up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think when you have kids, it forces you to like grow up a little bit, or force you to look at things a little different. But Jimmy's the eternal, like he's like the Peter Pan of hardcore. You know what I mean? He's still there.
He's loving it too, so you got to give it to him. And you got to give it to those that are stuck around and still believe in what they do and love what they do. And, and then people are like, oh, what's grateful about bands like my band, Murphy's Law, a lot of the older bands, whatever, is that, we had our party, and our party was in the beginning, the early 80s. And, we were the life of our party. And what's cool about it is that there's a bunch of new bands, and now it's their party, but it's cool that we know that we're always invited to their party.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we come in and we're welcomed, so it feels good. It feels good to like have that gratitude from a lot of bands. And we've inspired a lot of bands at the same time. A lot of these young bands have inspired us, and I've always say that. It's just because we go on the road with the young bands, we meet people, and we stay relevant for that reasons. We unconsciously, we're kind of all inspiring each other. So It's cool,
Yeah, absolutely. But dude, imagine being a kid now, right? 15-year-old kid now getting into punk or hardcore, and like you were there at the beginning. I was there a couple years in, and I only had a couple years. I missed like 81 to 83 or 84. I missed that stuff, like, and I had to catch up on. I can't imagine trying to catch up on 40 fucking years of fucking music, dude. Like, it's fucking bananas, like, and it's like you said, so it's like. It's their party now, and it's good that the torch is still going, and it's like, it's good that there's like this many generations at a show. Like, you go to a show now, and there's like people that look like that, the people that are literally grandfathers that are there with their kid or their grandson, you know what I mean, and or whatever, and it's generational now, but they're still there. And that's because it means something. It's more than just a regular genre of music. This is like more than music. It means something. Like, whether it's family or whatever, it's a way of life for a lot of people, and that's what I love.
I think in Ian's film, The Godfathers, or our film with Ian, that really came across strongly.
Yeah.
And a lot of people came to our shows. They were like, man, now my mom finally understands me. Or I met people's parents, and I used to think this is crazy music. I'm like, oh. Now I know. Now like it's a lot. People are too quick to judge a book by its cover,
Sure. Yeah.
And it's funny. It's a funny thing because I was always crazy doing all stuff, and my mom had a lot of her friends, and they had a lot of straight people, and they're all like accountants, lawyers, whatever, but they're all doing like crazy drugs and crazy shit. But my son looks crazy with a giant mohawk, whatever, no eyebrows, but he's not doing any of that shit, you know? Yeah. So you judge a book by its cover, there's good and bad in everything, bro. There's good and bad in everything, and every religion, race, everything, you know what I'm saying? So I like to stick to the people that want something good out of everything, and like to stay positive, and I like to talk and speak to them. You want something, positive and good. Yeah. Any negativity, I don't want nothing to do with it, man, Yeah. And then I come from a time where politically incorrect was correct. Yeah, that's a glorious time to be in a band. Yeah, now you think about it. If the Sex Pistols were a band today, they'd probably be canceled tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I would say. Like especially like, and not even like Sex Pistols. You take a band like Discharge, which is like heroes to a lot of the crust punks. But I'm like, if you listen to those lyrics, those are like alt-right lyrics at this point. You know what I mean? Like, it's bananas how things have flipped so hard, man. Like, and I love Discharge. You know what I mean? And I still agree with what they say.
Band.
Yeah,
I'm just saying it's just a different world.
Absolutely.
And people are quick to jump to things, but I'm glad I lived in a time where I didn't have to have a straitjacket and duct tape on my mouth and be a punk rocker.
Yeah, exactly. Like you didn't have to worry about getting canceled as a punk band. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're a punk band, you should be cancel proof, because you should be able to say whatever the fuck you want, and if people don't agree, they don't support you, but they ain't canceling you. You know what I mean?
Freedom of speech. Yeah. And, and individuality was always important.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech. And we've stuck to the same beliefs we've always had from day one.
Yeah.
Like we're very aware that the government's, we're not a fan of the government.
No.
The government creates all this shit.
Yeah.
But we love the country, love being here. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
Yeah.
But the government's fucked up. And that's it for my politics.
Exactly. So, It's like, again, it's like us versus them, like the collective us versus, the outside world. That's how I've always looked at it. So, really quick, anything going to do anything with Alligators or the Disasters or anything?
I just recorded a record with the Alligators. If we recorded it in the summer, it's pretty sick. I love it. It. And we did a sick Devo cover too.
Nice.
It's cool, and I'm getting ready to release it. It's just everything's been on top of everything.
Sure, yeah.
Especially with these anniversary releases that we've just had to get done because it was a 40-year. It was a big year for us. And then I had my book.
Yeah.
And then I had so much to do, but we recorded the record. It's all done. It's all masters, all ready to go. So it's going to go soon. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with it.
Yeah.
It's another sick little 7-inch. It should be more like a 10-inch, but we're going to get into a 7-inch.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. The Disasters, we had a bunch of songs that we still haven't written. I was talking to Reese the other day. Reese is playing with the Street Dogs now.
Yep.
And he also plays with the Alligators on guitar.
Yep.
And we got a record. It was just that finding time to do stuff is tough nowadays. I'm because I'm pretty busy.
Yeah, so sure.
Finding the time,
I get it.
But we have a lot of content for the Disasters. Someday I hope we get to put it down,
Yeah, it was good stuff, man. It was good stuff. So
The Alligators is one of those bands that we call shit out on the Alligators.
Yeah.
You heard that second album? We're calling everything that we're experiencing right now.
Yeah.
We talked about it. Same thing with the last Agnostic Front record.
Yep.
Get Loud.
Yeah.
Go listen to those lyrics.
Yeah.
Go listen to Alligators lyrics. We're calling shit out the way it should be called out, the way it used to be called, the way things were.
100%.
And we're still doing it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a sick band.
Yeah. All right. Well, where can people find more information? Where is there a link where they can pre-order the book? You got a couple weeks. You got a couple weeks to get on that before the 3rd.
A couple weeks. You got till January 16th to get the second edition of With Time. Here it is, the book. It's second edition is going to be packed with some critical stuff I left accidentally because we're trying to make pages less. I'm like, oh man, how do we forget that? You know?
Where can they pre-order that?
RevHQ.com. He's got the pre-orders going right now.
Okay.
January 16th. That's it. Everything goes into fulfilling the orders. I suggest get that second edition, or if you could find a first edition, if you could, because once we get into the third edition, the book's going to be slimlined down a lot. So go to RevHQ.com and pick it up as soon as you can. I strongly advise you, if you love the Godfathers film on Agnostic Front, you're going to love With Time on Agnostic Front. Yeah.
And if you haven't seen the Godfathers, go check it out. It's streaming everywhere.
Yeah, the Godfathers, Ian McFarlane did a phenomenal job with the Godfathers. It's a masterpiece. You know what's really funny is, like, I tell people, like, one of the few things, like, everybody asks, what's your top 5 records? And I always put Victim of Pain in it. And it feels weird. Yeah. Like, I put my own band in there, but God damn it, every time I put that record on, I am fucking impressed. And it has nothing to do with even me in it. Yeah. You know, like I could exclude myself from it. I'm like, this is a good record. Yeah. You know, and The Godfathers is a great film. Yep. And I could exclude myself from it. Yeah. You know, and and sometimes I do that. You know, I'm like, I got to give credit where credit's due. Ian did a phenomenal job. You know. Yeah.
Because it's not like a documentary on, like, the history of Agnostic Front. It's the story. It's like you and Vinny's story. Like, it's like a
story. It's a complete different. It's not what you would expect. Yeah. And that's what's really mind blowing. Yeah. You know, and the same thing with it's. I like that. I've always been a little bit out of the norm. That's what punk was to me, being different. You know, so it's good to be a little different, stand out in a different spot, in a different corner. You know. Yeah. We were like that throughout the whole '80s. We were the only band that wasn't on, like, Profile. Everybody signed to Profile. We were over here, but at the same time, we had a lot of clout because Chris Wilson had to deal with us. We were in one of his bands, so now you had to come see us. Yeah, you know, So it was always cool. Yeah. But also, if you get a chance, follow Agnostic Front NYC on Instagram. Follow Agnostic Front, of course. If you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram, Roger Miret. Another cool thing to follow, if you're into history and looking at, like, records and stuff like that, follow Vinyl Assault on Instagram. And then again, I want to thank you, Truth, for doing this podcast. This is long overdue. Yeah. I've been wanting to do this for you for a long time. I just haven't had the time. And I'm like, now that I got time, this is something I really want to do for you. Yeah. Thank you. You were one of the few guys that I actually reached out to when I was doing my book and stuff. I wanted you to read some stuff because I value I like you're a smart man. Yeah. No,
and dude, I appreciate that. Like, when Ian was like, hey, Roger, I want you to read some of this and go over it. And I was like, oh, fuck yeah, dude. I was, like, honored, man. Like, I was like, because this is, like, history to me, like, and I'm stoked to be part of.
No, it was very important for me. You're a very smart man. And I was like, if I'm going to have anybody look at this, it's going to be you. You're smart. You know where I'm coming from. You understand. And thank you for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I'm going to put all the links in the show notes. So if you're driving and listening, don't worry, like, about having to pull over and write shit down. It'll be all in the show notes. Make sure you pre-order that book. One quick thing I want to tell you about, like, when Ian was making the movie, he got that whole show that was recorded by a TV show, by a news show. There was a show at the A7, and it was Agnostic Front, but it was still when Watson was singing, I think. And
I was singing.
You were singing, yeah, that's right. But Watson was there moshing around, like, and
he jumped over my head.
Yeah, he jumped over your head, and, like, Beastie Boys played, and Jimmy was there talking and stuff. Man, and that encapsulated everything you were talking about, like the early shows, like how small and tight and cool it was. And
it was cool. It's the A7 Club. Remember that to a T.
Yeah.
That was actually my third or fourth show with the band too.
Yeah. It was
and
fresh.
And Watson jumps over me, and in fact, we had no music, so they dubbed Kraut to us.
It was weird. Yeah,
which is cool. I love Kraut. You know, so like Kraut music's playing, I'm singing.
Yeah.
And cool. I actually have the whole footage of that. You know what I have that's a masterpiece. It's awesome too. And the 7-inch just came out of that. Is I have a full show at the A7 Club. The last show ever at the A7 Club. I actually played in 3 bands. I played in the Psychos. I played in the Rat Poison Band, which was pre-Warzone, and Agnostic Front. And I have our full set video. And us awesome. Outside hanging out, all kinds of stuff. You've seen some of it in the Godfathers. And Harley just used some of it in his film, some of the outside stuff. In Miret for Chaos and stuff, his film. It's a good film. Yeah. And but I have the full set, and it's 22 minutes a set. But what was really cool about it is Todd Youth is playing bass, but you can hear we're playing already. United Blood just came out in October, and this show's in December. We're already playing Victim in Pain, Your Mistake. You know, we're playing these songs already. So we were already moving on. Doing stuff.
It was like early performance of those songs. Probably some of the first time some of those songs were ever played out.
I have awesome. A whole video of that, and someday maybe, I'll do something with it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it's really cool. It's at the A7 Club.
That's awesome, man. All right, and the best quote ever was never trust a hardcore kid that didn't listen to punk, right? It's always stuck with me. I want to thank you for coming on, man. I know you got to run. Just being cognizant of time here. I'm going to shut this off, but I'm not hanging up. Hold on one second.